It's a real pleasure to welcome to BBC Radio Scotland the one, the only Paul Rodgers. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Billy. Yeah, I'm pretty good.
It's good to see you again. It's been a long, long time.
Yes, it's nice to see you. It's lovely to hear your accent. We kind of miss the accents of Blighty, basically.
Well, I'll talk in a Scottish accent all the way through the interview, so you can rest assured about that. Paul, Midnight Rose is your first collection of new songs in almost 25 years. And over the years, you've obviously been kept busy doing other projects. Why did it feel that now was the right time to go back into the studio and make an album?
Well, when COVID hit and everybody was in lockdown, which seems like such a long time ago now. Actually, it was about 1.5 years ago when we started doing the album, but just before then. So everything came to a screeching halt. All the shows, all the live shows were cancelled and that, So I was sitting around at home with my acoustic guitar and I thought, well, I'll put all the songs I've got together and see what I come up with. Having done that, or kind of progressed in that way, I thought, well, I'll go in the studio and just see what happens with this material. I wasn't planning to make an album. I didn't say, this is going to be whatever, this is going to be the greatest album of my life or anything like that. I just said, let's just go in the studio. And I got my rhythm section from my solo band, which is Todd Ronning, the bass player, great bass player, and Rick Feddick on drums. And Rick introduced me to a guitar player called Ray Roper, and he has a studio just around the corner from where I live in BC, British Columbia. And he's a guitarist. He's a great guitarist, you see. So I thought, well, that's handy. That's very handy. Let's the four of us get in the studio and pretend we're a band. Well, actually we became a band and kick these songs around and see what comes out.
But almost 25 years is a very, very long time. As a songwriter, are you the kind of guy who's constantly writing songs and kind of gathering them as you go and squirreling them away for a rainy day, because, it's been a long time in coming, this record, hasn't it?
Well, yes, it has, and I've been working live and everything. I just couldn't get the new material off the ground. I don't know why. We just didn't play it live. And I've been promising to do this, put an album like this together for some 20 years now. So I suppose this is a culmination of all of the above.
There's a great quote in which you say that it came from a spark of ideas which developed into a raging fire when the band got involved. How did that happen? What was the difference when these guys came in the studio with you and you managed to get the whole project off the ground?
Well, writing songs on acoustic guitar is great. You do that at home, but you need to translate it into a sort of band format. You need to put the drums behind it to give it some kick. You need to put the bass down to give it some heavy bottom end and some guitar. So there's some very imaginative guitar playing on this and some they're great players, absolutely fantastic musicians. We got in the studio and we put all the bed tracks down at Ray Roper's place. And then we took it to Vancouver, Bryan Adams' studio, which is in Gastown in a great area. We had the bed tracks down, and then I brought my beautiful wife, Cynthia, in, and she did some production. And we put a lot of great guitar players and great keyboard players, a sax player, I do believe. We had Chuck Leavell from the Stones.
From the Rolling Stones, yeah.
Yeah. He's a great guy, fantastic musician.
You mentioned your wife, Cynthia, who was very closely involved in the production of the record. She's standing at your side at the moment. So let's bring her in for a second. How does it work between the two of you? What's the dynamic, when you go from being husband and wife to singer and co-producer? How does it work?
Well, I entered the studio just as a music fan, really, and I could hear different things in the song, maybe from a female perspective. And so I would give those suggestions to Paul, and he would go, that's interesting. Okay, let's try that and see. And he was I have to say, he was very easy to work with. He was very open to ideas. And from my ideas, he got ideas. So it was very collaborative. So we did 3/4 of the album. It was 3/4 complete. at Ray Roper's studio in Peachland, BC. And then when we went to the warehouse, what had happened was we sent one of the tracks, Midnight Rose, out for mixing. And it's a track that I really am drawn to. And I think that a lot of women in particular will be drawn to that track. It's just a beautiful track. And I sent it off for mastering rather. And it came back and the magic was gone. And I thought, well, it's been a year and a half of listening to these songs. Perhaps my ears are gone. So I sent it to Randy Staub, who is a friend, great engineer, great mixer. And I said, Randy, can you please listen to these 2 songs, adjudicate them for me and tell me what you think? And so he came back to me and he said, one seems warmer and brighter. And I said, thank you. And I said, I need to find someone who can master this for us and maybe add some final finishing touches. And he said, okay, well, let me call Bob Rock. So story is, Bob told me this story. He called Bob Rock and said, Bob, I got a call from Cynthia Rogers, Paul's wife, and Bob cut him off and said, yes. And Randy said, don't you want to know what I'm asking of you? And he said, no, I have been training my entire life working with Metallica, Aerosmith, AC/DC to work with Paul Rogers. I am so ready for this. So Randy said, okay. So Bob came over from Maui into Vancouver and we spent 5 days in the studio and he added little diamonds and glitter here and there. And the end result is Midnight Rose. He was lovely to work with.
We're going to hear a track from it now, and it's actually the opening track. Just kind of tee up for us, Paul, if you can. It's Coming Home. Where did that song come from in the whole mix of things?
This song really is sort of an ode to the first responders in whatever field they work in. The soldiers, the medics, the police, fire, all of the above, generally throughout the world, and who keep us safe, relatively safe, so that we can go about our life in somewhat peace. And it's a sort of thank you to them. Eventually, hopefully, they come home safe.
Let's hear it now then. From the brand new album from my special guest, Paul Rogers, the record is called Midnight Rose, and this is the opening track, the sound of Coming Home. This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. You join me in conversation with the legendary Paul Rogers. We're talking about his brand new album, which is called Midnight Rose. And Paul, boxers and rock singers have something in common, because when a guy's just about to go into the ring, he always says that he's in the best shape of his life. And you have said that you reckon that this is the best album of your 55-year career. Every band says that. Everybody always says that their new record's the best record. But you really believe that, don't you?
I do, yeah, because I think Cynthia, her influence and input has been very important to me in this album. It's the 2 of us. It's raw and real.
I think it's the most raw and real that Paul has been in his recording career.
Okay.
I think it really exposes him to the fans, his feelings. It's a very deep album, very deep. Once the fans hear it and read the lyrics.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sweetheart.
The other great thing about the record is, and it must have been a huge thrill when you did this, it's released on Sun Records, the legendary label founded in the late 1950s in Memphis by Sam Phillips. So you know what the legacy of that record label is. Elvis Presley, Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, Roy Orbison, Carol Perkins. As a music fan yourself, was it the ultimate thrill to continue that incredible musical timeline?
Well, I think it really was, wasn't it? Because through all these years, I've loved all of the music that's come out of America, basically. And so in a conversation with music conglomerate Primary Wave, who owns Sun Records, when they asked what I was doing, I replied that I was in the studio working on the new songs, and they said, well, Sun Records would be interested in those new tracks when you get finished, so give us a call. Yeah, it's out on Sun Records. It's a fantastic climax, really, to my career.
I guess that over the course of your career, you have been in Memphis on more than one occasion. Have you actually gone into the hallowed ground of Sun Studios? Because I did it once, and it was real hairs in the back of the neck stuff. Yeah,
I've heard it's fantastic.
You've not been there then?
I don't think I have, actually. I am not really sure. I can't remember. There's supposed to be a spot where Elvis, his favourite spot to sing. Have you been there then? You may have seen
I mean, apart from a lick of paint, it's exactly as it was the day he walked in to make the record for his mother's birthday.
Yeah.
Let's go right back to the start if we can, Paul. You were born in Middlesbrough in 1949 and, you know, you wanted to be a singer when you were a teenager. Who were the male singers and the female singers that influenced Paul Rodgers?
Well, back in the day, in the 70s, well, actually the late 60s, my major influences was the blues, the soul and the rock and roll that came out of America. Some country as well. I've liked some country, but very much the blues and soul. And Ray Charles was one of the first, and Otis Redding too. And I still have those albums. I have Crying Time. Oh, it's crying time again. You're gonna leave me. I can see that faraway look in your eyes. I used to listen to that when I was a kid of about 13 and 14, which is pretty mature stuff now that I look back, because Ray Charles was, right, Ray Charles is Ray Charles. I got turned on to Otis Redding in the sort of disco days, but it wasn't a disco. There was a club in Middlesbrough called the Purple Onion. It was run by John McCoy, and there was a great DJ there that used to play a lot of Otis Redding, and I really loved it.
On the track that we've been playing over the past few weeks in the programme, Living It Up, you actually name-check some of the people that you admired: Aretha Franklin, B.B. King, Ray Charles, and you say in the lyrics of the song, "They changed my game." Was it as dramatic as that?
That was a little addition from my wife, Cynthia, actually. They changed my game. And I thought that's true, I'll put that in. When I started singing, I was just singing whatever was in the charts, like everyone else. But when the blues came along and they hit me like a ton of bricks, and I heard Howlin' Wolf and John Lee Hooker and Albert King and all these great guitarist singers, and players, they really touched me. They spoke to me, actually, about freedom, and being free and jumping on a train, leaving on that midnight train and all that kind of romantic, I guess it's romantic stuff, and I love all that.
Let's hear it now then. This is my special guest, Paul Rodgers, and a great song called Living It Up. This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. You join me in conversation with my special guest, Paul Rodgers, talking about his great new album, which is called Midnight Rose. And Paul Rodgers came onto my radar in the very early 70s when you, of course, joined Paul Kossoff, Andy Fraser and Simon Kirkconnell. And I was lucky enough to go along to the old Greens Playhouse in Glasgow on the 24th of February, 1972. The tickets were 40 pence. Can you believe that? And it was so early in the band's career that on the ticket you were billed as The Free. Do you have fond memories, Paul, of those incredible days working with those three guys?
I do indeed. I remember the Greens Playhouse, and doesn't everybody? There was a high spot at the top, like up in the nosebleeds there, and it would bounce. And the promoter would, you can't do any more songs, lads, because that balcony is going to come down. But we went on anyway. It did never come down, but it was apparently very close to coming down with the fans jumping up and down and that. We had a great time there, and I have lots of fond memories of Free, working with Andy Fraser, with Koss, of course, and Simon, and writing a lot of songs with Andy Fraser. We'd be Lennon and McCartney to ourselves, sort of wishful thinking. But we go into a room and we go in with nothing. We'd come out with, Ride on Pony or, Woman or something like that. And it was great times, actually.
You talked about working with Andy Fraser there in a songwriting sense. What do you remember about actually writing the song All Right Now? Because it's claimed, and I don't know if this is true or not, that it came after a particularly bad gig in Durham and you were in the Student Union building, and that's when the song came together. Is that true?
Well, that's how Simon remembers it, I do believe. I don't remember it like that. I remember Andy and I were writing a lot of songs, and we were a blues band initially, and we introduced into the set more and more of our own material. And I said to Andy, we should try and go for having a whole set of our own material. And that's what we worked towards. But there was one song that we could never drop. The Hunter, because it was just so popular. We could never get off the stage unless we'd played The Hunter. And I said to Andy, we have to write a song, man, that is at least equal to the power of that song. I don't know what it's got. It's got something, and we've got to come up with something that is at least as good as that, and something that, everyone can sing along with it. It'd be a good idea. Something very simple like, like All Right Now. And we worked on that, and it became the chorus. And Andy took that away, and he came back with the down, 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 and I felt right. So I got to write lyrics to that, and I wanted to get to the point of it being all right now. So something happened, and now it's all right. So what do you think might have happened? Well, it's a boy meets girl story, I guess. So, you got to say something like, there she stood in the street, smiling from her head to her feet. I said, hey, what's this? Maybe she's in need of a kiss. And that sort of thing. And the lyrics just rolled out quite quickly, actually, once I'd got the first line and the idea for where I was going with it. I wanted to reach that point of being able to say, it's all right now, everything's good. So that's how it came about.
It was a number one hit in more than 20 countries around the world, and the last time anybody bothered to count, it had chalked up something like 3 million radio plays in the USA alone. It probably far exceeds that now. That must be incredibly satisfying for a songwriter, is it?
Oh, hi. Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Because the most satisfying thing really, though, is when you play a song on stage and the audience wants to sing it and they join you. That's really the most satisfying thing, because one of the things that helped me become a singer was back in the day when we got a Shure mic and we all had a go on it, right? And they said, right, well, you have a go now. And I had a go. I sang a Little Richard. I can't even remember, but it was probably, good golly, Miss Molly. And then they turned to me and they said, okay, now you're the singer. And that's what a turning point in my life. And then we used to do a Solomon Burke song. It was also being done by the Stones, actually, this song. Everybody Needs Somebody to Love. And it goes like something like, I'm so glad to be here tonight. Dum, 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 dum. And I'm so glad to be home. And I believe I got a message for every man and every woman that's ever needed somebody to love. Someone to hold wherever you are and stuff like that. And it goes, everybody needs somebody to love, and I need you. And I would point to the crowd at that point, and they'd really respond. I was about 13. And it was such a wonderful feeling of joy, bringing all the people together and singing like that,
Let's hear that incredible song now. And I've chosen the version from the second album that I ever bought. I bought it from Listen Records in Cambridge Street in Glasgow. The fantastic Free Live album, done up like the old airmail envelope with each of you as a stamp on the top right-hand corner of the envelope. This is Free Live and the sound of All Right Now. Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland. You join me with my special guest, Paul Rodgers. We're talking about his great new album, which is called Midnight Rose. And Paul, you know, once Free had gone their separate ways, we wondered if lightning could strike twice, and boy, did it strike twice. You formed Bad Company with Mick Ralphs and Boz Burrell and Simon Kirke, and you had an absolutely incredible career, selling in excess of something like 125 million, and I'll say that again, 125 million records. What was it like? What do you remember about the days of Bad Company?
I remember everything. It was very exciting. What I do remember is when we went to America for the first time with Free, we went from playing blues clubs, basically, small, venues and bars and things like that, to playing huge venues in America with Blind Faith, Eric Clapton and Ginger Baker and those guys, which on the face of it was which I guess was a great opportunity. But one of the things it did was it was sort of a bit big for us, and we weren't really managed at that point. We were managing ourselves, or trying to. And it made me come away thinking, okay, we've got to go back to America with a stronger band and stronger music, strong music and all that sort of thing. So I formed Bad Company. I actually formed a band called Peace, first of all, and that's how I met Mick Ralphs. And we were touring together in the UK. And there was a tuning room, which all of the bands used. We'd go in there and tune our guitars and stuff like that. And I'd meet Mick in there sometimes, and we would be tuning our guitars, and we'd exchange ideas, and he played me Can't Get Enough of Your Love, and I liked it a lot, and that's where we started writing songs from there. So I wanted a stronger management to go back to America in a strong band, and Bad Company was formed, basically.
And I mean, you toured all over the world. We saw you when the band reformed a few years ago when you played a great gig at the Clyde Auditorium in Glasgow. What would you say was the basic difference, if there is a difference, between, what you were doing in Free and what you went on to do with Bad Company?
Well, there were different people involved, different musicians, I mean, I loved Free, and a lot of people did. But with Mick, we were a good songwriting team. And it was a great rhythm section. They were a little bit more mature, I guess, than we were with Free. We were young and free. Boz was a jazz player, and we always used to take the mickey out of him for his jazz leanings. The band had a real swing to it when he played the bass, and it was really very melodic bass player as well, which I suppose Andy was. Not much difference really, but different people, and we had very powerful management at that point, which is a real good thing to have. Peter Grant and having Led Zeppelin backing you up is, a total bonus. We went, they introduced us, actually formally to the American audience, which was a huge step and very good for us. And we had Can't Get Enough of Your Love, of course, which is, I said to Mick when I first heard that song, that's a smash hit, and I was right.
You have been very fortunate over the course of your incredible career. You've worked with people like Jimmy Page and The Firm and Kenny Jones and The Law. And you've also rubbed shoulders with singers like Robert Plant, Brian Johnson, Sam Moore, Roger Daltrey, and played alongside guys like Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton and Joe Walsh and David Gilmour. If I really put you on the spot and said you could wave a magic wand, is there anybody that you would love to have worked with, past or present, that you never get round to either making a record or guesting with them on stage?
Well, I could think of Jimi Hendrix, actually, straight away. But to be honest, I don't think he needed a singer because I loved his voice. But it would be nice to have worked with him, in some capacity, because he was so very creative. He wrote so many beautiful songs, like Little Wing, for instance. Well, she's walking through the crowds with a circus smile that's running round. And Gary Moore, I did work with Gary Moore, actually. He came and jammed with me at the Albert Hall one time, and it was fantastic. We always used to cross paths. Whenever we did cross paths, we'd always kind of look at each other and think, we'd have conversations, say, we should do something together, but we never got around to it. And sadly, he passed away, and it was too late,
We're going to play another track from your brand new album, and it's actually the title track now, Midnight Rose on Sun Records. So just kind of tee that one up for us, Paul. Where did that one come from?
Well, that come from a very interesting. Well, to me, it is an interesting tuning on the guitar. If you tune it to an E chord, an E major chord, and you hit the 12th fret with a bar chord, but you'll find harmonics there, and it's a very nice sound, ching ding, and it's very mandolin-y sounding. It's there's a harmonic on the guitar. I don't actually have one with me right now, otherwise I'd demonstrate, but it's very nice, and that's what triggered the song. And so I only could use those two chords basically, and so it came from that, and it's a love song.
Let's hear it now then, the title track of your first album in almost 25 years. This is Paul Rodgers and the sound of Midnight Rose. This is Billy Sloan on BBC Radio Scotland with my special guest Paul Rodgers. We're talking about your brand new album called Midnight Rose, and we've been talking about every aspect of your incredible career, Paul, and you've always had a great affection, as you mentioned earlier, for Glasgow. You recorded a live album way back in 2007. Realistically, when do you think we're going to see you on the road in the UK again? Is there plans to maybe do a tour in 2024?
Well, there's no plans, no. I've been so busy doing the album, I have not made any plans to tour.
Paul, we can't talk to you about asking you about another time in your life, which I guess must have been a real satisfying experience for you, because Robert Plant has said that you're the voice of British voices, and then Brian May said he is simply the greatest blues rock singer alive. His is the voice that everybody else looks up to. How did you get the call to join Queen way back in 2004? How did that come about?
Cynthia was part of this.
We played at Wembley for the Stratocasters' 50th anniversary, I believe it was, and Paul sang Stay With Me. And Brian heard Paul sing in his higher register, higher range. And so after the event, I said to Paul, let's go say goodbye to everyone. And he said, Brian's way on the other side of the arena. And I said, well, let's go. So we went, and I said to Brian jokingly, I said, Brian, so you've got Paul on vocals, you on guitar, Pino Palladino on bass. All we need is a drummer. And I was joking, but Brian went away and thought, that's interesting. Then when they got the offer and Paul got the offer to perform live on a TV show in the UK, Brian thought, well, I know Paul could sing All Right Now, We Are the Champions. So the two of them talked. Paul said, well, yeah, I'd like to perform All Right Now, because he was closing the show in honor of Chris Blackwell, and they asked him to sing All Right Now. So Paul and Brian came up with, you sing for us, we'll sing for you. And that was the first time they played together, and magic happened. And then they said 4 dates, and it turned into 4 years.
Well, yes, it did. 4 years, because Brian said to me, can we get together and just do a couple of shows for fun in Europe? And I said, well, it sounds good, because we'd played All Right Now together, and we'd played We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. And it sort of made sense at that point in time, you know. They're very versatile. Their music is, I mean, wow. There's so many great songs that they've actually, hits that they've got. I said, sure, let's just do that. Let's do a couple of dates and see how we go. Well, that couple of dates turned into 4 years. We toured the world twice, and we made a studio album. So it really got involved. At the end of the day, though, I did think that I was getting too far away from my own kind of music, and I wanted to step away from it. But it was a wild and exciting run.
You know, Freddie Mercury had said, you know, when he was alive, that he was a real admirer of your voice. You weren't trying to copy Freddie Mercury. You weren't trying to sort of duplicate what he'd been doing. But it must have been very big shoes to step into. You know, did you have any reservations before that first tour, you know, that you were doing the right thing or the wrong thing?
Well, you know, I wondered really what people would make of it, but basically I always have followed the music wherever my whole life. I've just followed the music. And it seemed to me that when we played together, if we hadn't have played together, I might have had very much second thoughts. But we had done, and it was such a musical success, playing All Right Now with the guys. And we also, later on, we did Feel Making Love, we did Wishing Well, we did Feel Myself. And every one of them, they performed fantastically. Brian's a great guitar player, so there's no problem there. And I said to myself, now, how do I do this? Because I don't really want to be stepping into anybody's shoes. I want to be myself. And actually, Brian Johnson from AC/DC, I'd read an interview by him, and when he was going to join that band, in the first night on stage, the guitar player said to him, and he looked very nervous, and he was very nervous, so he said in this interview. And he said that, hey, don't worry about anything, just go and be yourself. And I'd read that interview, and I thought, well, that's what I'll do. I'm not going to try and replace anybody. I'm just going to be myself. So what I did was I set out really to basically interpret their songs in my way, and that's really how I handled it.
And the guy who's doing that now is Adam Lambert. He's been with the band for quite a number of years. Do you think he's doing a good job? Are you a fan of what he does?
Well, I think he's perfect for the band. And again, Cynthia introduced it. Didn't you do something?
I saw Adam Lambert on television, and I thought we had already left Queen, and I thought, well, now he would be perfect. So I sent Brian an email, but a lot of people sent Brian an email about Adam Lambert. I know Spike Edney, their musical director for the last 40 years and keyboardist, he also saw Adam and sent Brian an email and said, we should check this guy out. We saw him once, and I think he's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's perfect for the band. I haven't really followed them since then, but from what I've seen, it's great. Yes.
Paul Rodgers, has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Thank you very much for making an album after almost 25 long years. Just to remind everybody, once again, it's called Midnight Rose. We hope to see you very soon back on stage in the UK and in particular north of the border. And let's go out with an absolute bang. Let's go to the album Return of the Champions that you made with Brian May and also Roger Taylor. And this is you on vocals with a brilliant version of Tie Your Mother Down. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
It's got
Absolutely fantastic stuff. You know, if I was making a list of my favourite rock vocalists of all time, he would be in the top 3. And, you know, he might even be at number 1. Paul Rodgers, from formerly of Free Bad Company. And, of course, he fronted Queen with Roger Taylor and Brian May in a brilliant track called Tie Your Mother Down. And check out his brand new album, which is heartily recommended. And once again, it's called Midnight Rose.